started? That's like, oh, we haven't started. Oh, okay.
Oh,
No,
no,
I was
Enough.
oh
just
shit.
making the small talk, but
That's okay. No, that's okay. Let's take that then. That's good.
No,
I
no.
thought you'd already started. That's it. Oh, shitty recording and everything. Let's go.
no.
Exactly why. Well, that's super. That'll settle me in a bit more now.
Not surprised with us, Nate. Always jumping the gun. Everything a bit too fast.
Been doing it my whole life, mate. Doing it my whole life.
Right. Today on Diaries of Doom, I'm speaking to Wired's Jaw, who are a grindcore band from Nottingham who've just released a second EP a couple of days ago. Could you two introduce yourselves for me?
All right, I'm Brendan. I play drums in Wag Jaw, and yeah, I'm from Leicester.
My name's Nate. I do vocals in the band, write lyrics, and occasionally write bits of guitar, but I'm not good enough at that to play it. So we have a guitarist called Tom who plays it for us, who isn't here, unfortunately.
Cool. Okay. Well, in your own words, who or what is Wired's Jaw?
Do you want to take this one, shall I?
You can go for it if you can cover it. I think you can.
I'll give it a go. It's what Wide Jaw is to me. Bren and I have been friends for a few years, and we wanted to do a grindcore band that was a little bit more disjointed, a bit more wacky in the way it approaches things. I love a huge amount of grind. There's so much good grind in the UK, but there are like schools of grind. There's bands that go for that kind of like power violence route exclusively with lots of power chords. There's people who do very technical style stuff. We wanted to kind of amalgamate a lot of those things into one place and just try and do something that definitely has a foot firmly placed in grind, but sort of has another foot sort of dipping its toe into other areas at the same time. Just so it sounds a bit different. There's so many good bands doing that sound already. We want to do something that makes it stand out a bit more. I don't know if you'd agree with that kind of sentiment, Brent.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that to me, Wire Jaw just lets us be open and free to do whatever we want with the music. Like on this EP, more even than the last one, there's like there's a couple of songs I wouldn't even say, you could say or grindcore or whatever, but it doesn't matter. It's what we came up with, and like it has that freedom and that openness. We're not expected on anything. We can just do whatever we want because it's our band and it's our expression. And yeah, I just openness. That's what it is to me.
Yeah,
definitely. I can hear that in the music. And like, which other bands' fans would Wired Jaw appeal to? Or in other words, if you like X band and Y band, then you'll probably like Wired Jaw as well.
That's an excellent question. I mean, in some respects, I don't know about you, but I think one of the bands that sort of inspired us to do something that was a bit different is both Brett and I have a huge love for the band Horse Bastard from up north. They are just breakneck madness, and it's outrageously fun, and sort of does a lot of things grind as well, but also in a way that isn't hyper politicized. Once again, grind is very good at doing that already, so it's quite fun to have a bit more of a narrative theme with some of that stuff, which is some of the stuff we try to do with ours.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the Horsey B. Them guys. Other things, there's a lot of stuff up north that's really good. That's got that sort of free, open style. You've got like that newer band Ono Snop, and was it the Afternoon Gentlemen? I believe they're from up there as well, and they've all got that breakneck style with the, so you don't know what's going to come next, and that's sort of that kind of thing. But it sort of has its own sort of, I'd say it has a sort of more of a root and sort of death metal sort of sound as well coming through, and sort of how the guitars come through in the sound. Yeah.
Cool. What ended up inspiring the band name Wide Jaw?
I mean, we went through a fair few band name iterations at various stages.
Yeah.
Where we like formatting the idea. You know when you start something and you've got like a load of ideas for what you want it to be before it's refined, and you've got like a real clear picture of it. So one of the working names at one stage was going to be Bastardon, just because I couldn't believe that wasn't already a name in some respects, but it was, I know, like a sort of quite a visceral image that's just sort of there. It's framed quite nicely in the way it is. It's not one of these logos that's almost unintelligible in the way it's produced. Nothing wrong with that. Just once again, we like the ability to stand out. I mean, you know, from the EP cover, it's in hot pink. It's we want to be the thing that people look at and go, oh, that's cool. This is Wide Jaw. It's still not easy to read, but I think that's sort of part of the fact. I can't really think exactly where it came from there, what inspired it from memory now.
I'm trying to think, did I come up with it? I'm not sure where it came from, but to me it sort of represents sort of like that visceral image. I'm imagining someone with the, you know, the mouth restraints in and their jaw all wired up. And that image to me is just really like visceral, like he said, it's just there. So it sort of has that on edge sort of vibe, I guess. So that's where that comes from.
Yeah.
2 days ago, I believe, Don't Forget to Eat Your Greens came out. I think you've touched upon this a little bit already, but how do the songs come together? How have they come together for this EP that was different to the last one, maybe?
I think to start, there was a couple of songs that we had already wrote from that we hadn't recorded from the previous EP that sort of got finished off after that. And we'd had a sort of regular practice going on in Nottingham. And then, of course, coronavirus brought that all to a stop. But we had some things that were work in progress, and we actually decided to plow on. And we finished, I think, a couple of songs by using just project files, sending them back and forth, talking to each other like this, and you know, making suggestions, doing things, sending it back and forth, mixing it down. And we thought that really worked. So I think we then ended up writing another 2 songs that also ended up on the EP that we ended up writing exclusively without having seen each other. We just did it on here, and we're all set up to record at home. So we just went for it, and it sort of came out and worked. And you know, I'd like to be able to play it together, let alone live.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. So what was it at the very beginning? Some of the earlier stuff is sort of because I didn't have a setup, I sat down with my guitar and Guitar Pro and imagined how, if I played this, what would go with this from a bass perspective or a drummer's perspective, where would the vocals fit? And would come up with ideas that we'd ping out to each other and chop and change and move bits around, or go, maybe that doesn't work in that way and we could do this. So a couple of songs started in that way. A couple of them were then written sort of in practice space with all 3 of us, where, you know, Tom goes, I want to do this, or Bren goes, I want something that sounds like, I don't know, like a mathcore Narzen or what have you. And then a couple of those were, as I said, written exclusively in this kind of environment. So those tracks were Beast and the one we released as the first single, which was Cult of Hoarding. And with that being the longest song, being towards the end of the EP, I wanted to put a bit of a shine on it, just so people can see it and hear it. Because I think, you know, I think I speak for all of us when I say we're really impressed with how both of those songs, I mean, obviously impressed with all that we love, all the music we produced, otherwise we wouldn't release it. But I think we're particularly happy with the fact that we produced those under pretty remarkable constraints. We think we're doing this over 2 counties and 3 different households, and it's essentially, you know, done over Discord and WhatsApp, and then you end up with a full mixed and mastered release, thanks to Tom, who is an absolute wizard with those sort of things as well.
Speaking of lockdown and COVID-19, how do you approach releasing and promoting a new release when you can't like go out and show everyone in person?
That's a good question. If you've got any suggestions, we're open. Well, we've had this recorded for a bit. We've been working on it for quite some time. It was just finishing it off, and we're just wanted to get it out there. And I find with this sort of type of music, the more sort of underground thing, the sooner it's out there, the better, because word of mouth usually is the best way for these things to get round. Because I'm sure we all have that 2 or 3 friends, Nate's one of mine, that comes to you. If they suggest a song, you're like, oh, I'm going to have to listen to it, because they're probably right. They know you and they know what you like. So hopefully would like to think it'll get shared around like that. But so far we've been sharing it on Facebook, and and hopefully gonna just word of mouth share it around with some friends.
Yeah, on the back of that as well, we do, obviously there are still some conventional things you can do that you would do in an online environment. Obviously, we can't go and tour the thing, but you can still design merch and release merch, which we have plans for that are in the pipeline. You can still produce a music video, albeit in a more interesting way than perhaps you would have if you could have the live show environment. You can still share on Facebook, send promoters, do interviews like this. And I mean, I think that's something, we don't know how long this is going to go on for. It's something that we might just have to get used to. If that's the case, I don't want that to impede on our ability to produce music we love playing and we want people to hear.
Yeah, I think we'd be planning on working on some new music, maybe. Just keep going. And we do have plans for a music video possibly that we've been working on. So that would be something to keep people interested, hopefully.
Cool, fair enough. Nate, what was your lyrical inspiration for this album? I have had a read of the lyrics on Bandcamp, but let's hear it from the man himself.
6 songs, so it won't take me long because that's like 5 minutes of music. So I described it on the sort of, what do you call it? The
liner notes.
Did I say yes, with sort of a variety of flowery language, but essentially a few different places. So some of it's life experience. Most importantly, I would say Juboa, the opening number, is in relation to a particularly prickly character that I lived with at one stage. Then you've got, sometimes it's just weird bits of media. So Aspic, although it's linked with the confusing world of dieting and mass information, actually entirely came, the whole idea for the song came from, believe it or not, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. The fifth one of those is about food, and I just wanted to run with that topic, and that's where the name Aspic comes from. Some of it's around current events, say like cult of hoarding, and some of it's about just giving the people who really care about what they're doing like a bit more kudos. So I mean, Double Down Piss Wizard, for example, that song kind of comes from the whole idea that there are people who get attached to something antiquated simply because it was good at one stage, and it's irrelevant to the actual standard of what it's doing now. It's irrelevant to the not say people don't put in effort to the things they produce, however, but it's shunning stuff where other people are trying to make their livelihoods out of making music or art, and someone might go to a product just because it's easy and convenient. And I sort of wanted to have a real focus in why not support someone who's just new and trying something, because you might be the person that gives them the next big break. That's not to say it has to be us, but that'd be nice, obviously. But if it's, it could be your friend's art business. It could be someone's small cooking channel. It's not just exclusively linked to the world of music. But sure, that's kind of what I wanted to get across from that.
Well, there's no gigs on at the moment, but what's the live scene like in your part of the country? Are there a lot of other bands in your genre that you'd be playing with if we weren't trapped in our houses?
Definitely, there's definitely quite a few bands around the Midlands who play similar to us, and a few shows and stuff. I think we even had a show that was meant to be on in May or sometime around then, which somehow I don't think's happening. So there would have been shows with things planned and lined up, and would have obviously that would have hopefully been ramped up, and but obviously that's all off. But I believe there's what are they called? There's Nothing Clean from Leicester. They'd be guys. I think I've already spoke to them possibly about doing something in the past. But yeah, so there's lots of opportunities for gigs around here and up in Nottingham as well.
Yeah, I mean, I will echo that. Nottingham, I think's got like a very thriving community, generally speaking, both for small underground bands and for bigger international acts. I think particularly that smaller scene, a couple of the key venues that have supported that, Stuck on a Name and Ian Bolt, who runs that, basically built a scene with his two hands. And that has been the scene of some of the most fun gigs I've ever been to. I think I saw a few years ago, it's a band called Plebeian Grandstand. I think you were playing that show actually, and they just the atmospheric black and grind, a room full of strobe lights. It's excellent band, terrifying is the only word to describe them. But there's also since then venues such as the Chameleon, unfortunately now defunct Alberts as a result of the pandemic, and various other places put on shows you just wouldn't believe. You got bands like Imperial Triumphant from the US, or you got big bands like Conan from just up the road in Liverpool, coming down and producing these huge shows with these crowds. So it's actually like it's an exciting space to be in. When you've got that as well. I mean, as well, one thing about it, the person whose gig we were meant to play last May, Phil Core, who runs Torturous Promotions as well, he's been going strong for years and years and years, and is regularly producing, top quality shows. And without people like that, we wouldn't have this scene. But because of that, we now have, loads of underground acts, both bands and like local bands and bands that come to us.
Okay, well, Wired Jaw are a trio, but don't have a bass player. Is this an artistic choice or something you'd be looking at filling out the sound with in the future?
Up until now, it's we've kind of always just gone with it's been me and Nate started it, and then we got a guitarist. And a lot of grind bands, some bands need bass, and some, if you don't need bass, then I'm sort of the opinion then it's not required. And so far we've just had Tom fill in on bass for like recordings, and then just go forward with that. And just live, we've just been playing as a 3-piece. So that's what we've been doing so far.
What I will say is we're not necessarily adverse to that idea. With some of the music we're coming up with in the pipeline at this moment in time, there are things we're experimenting with, and it's sort of a case of we really want to do something that's going to, like this release, I think was a step up from our demo, and we want this next one to be an even bigger step up from that, and like really pushing at those other boundaries. Like definitely still this very grind centric music, but having like some other orchestral, not like symphonic, but orchestrated ideas into how the actual thing's constructed. So bass might be a part of that. I mean, I think at some stage we even joked about synth pop. It's just seeing what's going to stick and still give us this really cohesive sound at the same time.
Yeah, we're still on the ground floor with new stuff, so all's open.
Exactly.
Let's start to wrap things up a little bit. What's your drink of choice, guys?
Long Island iced tea. So I wish I could say it was anything but a Morgan spiced and Coke, but it just becomes that these days if I'm going to have anything. Although I'm partial to an IPA as well.
Good choice. Good choice. Your release was called "Don't Forget to Eat Your Greens." So, with that in mind, what's your favourite vegetable?
Broccoli, because they look like little trees.
Good choice. Courgettes, they look like big dildos. Joking, but seriously, it is courgettes. That's not the reason. I promise.
If you could travel anywhere in the world after COVID, where would you go? Where's on your list?
Japan, somewhere of us. I'd like to check out. Tokyo sounds fun.
Such a good choice. Such a good choice. Maybe Vietnam. I think that's still top of my list at the moment. But I'd like to really spend time there, you know, like a month or two at least.
Don't blame you. Good choices. I've never been to South Asia myself, but maybe it's time in 2020 whatever year.
Bold of you to see that under the 2020s.
2020 blankety blank.
Guys, any final words before I leave you?
Don't forget to eat your greens.
Of course. What else could we say?
And thanks for having us, Matt. It's been really fun. Cheers for having us on.
It's been really fun. And whenever the next one comes out, hopefully we can do this with you again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a blast. It's been good speaking to you both. Good to meet you, Bren. And I'm sure we will do this again, hopefully in person. But who knows? All right. Thank you very much, guys.